Hey, what's up, everybody? Jeremy here, and it is a happy Tuesday, guys. As we're actually preparing for a foot of snow here in New Jersey again after having about 10 inches last week. It's a little crazy this year, so I am very excited to have our guest today. Who we got into LinkedIn marketing, I want to say about 3 months ago. I've been on LinkedIn for a long, long time, but never really concisely built my brand. So my co-founder and wife, Brielle, was looking for the best LinkedIn course and LinkedIn expert. And she actually found today's guest, who is Ali Mirza. And he has a really amazing LinkedIn course that we took and we've been implementing and grown my following by about 33% in the last probably about 60 days. So Ali, thanks for hanging out with me today, man.
Thanks for having me. Super excited to join you guys on the in the group.
Absolutely. And Ali, you're the founder of iSocialU. And just for the people here that haven't seen you before, tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do, man.
Absolutely. So iSocialU is a social media marketing agency, and think of us as a your outsourced social media team. And we do like two things for our clients. Number one is we help you create an engaging social media audience. And then number two is once you have that audience or in the process of building that audience, how do you generate leads, sales, and revenue from that audience? So those are the two main goals or objectives that we help our clients achieve.
Very cool. Well, I want to concentrate on LinkedIn today because I feel like it's one of the biggest things out there. And I feel like I don't want to, bad talk Facebook too much, but I feel like it's kind of getting a little bit behind with what LinkedIn's doing. And especially if you're watching guys like Josh Fechter and a lot of people out there, there's a lot of long form content, things that are doing very well over there. Yeah. So Ali, why should we be looking at LinkedIn, man? Like, why should we be concentrating some energy there?
Something changed, and I believe, probably goes back to the Microsoft's acquisition of LinkedIn and the internal changes. But I believe like mid of last year, I would say like August, I see a big shift in LinkedIn. So instead of, seeing posts about job openings and, we have a new opening for Java developer, blah, 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 I started seeing like stories. So think of like the content that we see on our Facebook newsfeed, the different stories, personal videos. So I started seeing that type of content, and I started like paying more attention to LinkedIn. And that's the change, that's the big change that LinkedIn pushed mid of last year. And I believe LinkedIn is turning into, I like to call personally, professional storytelling platform. So if you're B2B, which I think most of us are, if we do business with other business owners, LinkedIn is a really good platform. And probably like I used to wake up in the morning and number one thing I would go check is my Instagram. Now it's totally different. Now it's LinkedIn. So to answer your question, why LinkedIn? So that's why. Number one, it's becoming a professional storytelling platform. So think of LinkedIn as the new Facebook minus all those memes and kids that are not relevant to your business.
No bad cat photos, right?
Yes.
I think that's so true though, because especially and the interaction numbers have been huge as of recently too. Can you kind of speak to that? There seems to be a lot more opportunity over on LinkedIn as well right now.
Yeah, and that it happens with whenever there's a sort of like a new platform, and I know LinkedIn's not new, but the changes they made, it's kind of like the rebirth of the platform.
It's a very different platform now.
It's a very different platform. You're exactly right. So in the beginning, there's a lot more opportunity. You can reach a lot, and I'm pretty sure, very soon our organic reach is going to go down. And actually, a lot of people are already seeing it, and they're going to push for ads. But I think right now, if you publish content on LinkedIn and use some of the tactics that we will talk about, you can get a lot of like reach. And one thing that I like about LinkedIn is the reach, the engagement that you get on LinkedIn is more relevant to your business as compared to, let's say, Facebook or Instagram. Not to say that they're not good platforms to build your business, they are, but LinkedIn is they're more professional people active using LinkedIn.
Well, and it's interesting you say that too, because I know Josh Fechter has been making a big deal about it recently. That they had that whole, I know BuzzFeed picked it up, and they were calling it broetry. This like long form content, skip a line, skip a line, skip a line, and write this very long form content. And LinkedIn was onto him, and his impressions went way down, and he went back into writing block text. So I know, at least for what I'm doing, it's a mix of video and other things, because if you rely too much on one type of content, it can really crush you.
Yes. And so number one, be active on LinkedIn. That's like the first thing. Number two, exactly what you said. Post consistent content and then mix it up.
Mm-hmm.
So, imagine like if you have a podcast, then, you can share your podcast. You can create a story about your podcast. Imagine like this interview. So it could be, we could share a video of this interview on LinkedIn.
Mm-hmm.
And then we can also create what are the three things that we learned from this like interview and create like a text post. So
Mm-hmm.
that's the key. Number one, be consistent. And number two, mix up your content.
Very cool. So one of the things you and I were talking about before we started this is I said, well, Ali, what are the like key things that we really need to make sure we cover today? Because, we do 20 minutes. We want to keep people's attention, keep them rocking and rolling. And the big thing you were talking about, and I know this is something Dennis Yu's been talking about for a long time, is this idea of personal branding and especially relying on LinkedIn. So tell us about how we should be using LinkedIn as our personal branding platform.
Yeah, so really, really good question. And you're right. A lot of people are talking about building a personal brand because that's how, we like working with people or doing business with people that we trust, right?
Mm-hmm.
And trust comes from personal branding. So on LinkedIn, biggest mistake people make that I've seen, when you look at their profile, it doesn't speak to a specific audience. So if you're targeting, podcasters, or if you're targeting, the SaaS or, CEOs at a certain type of companies, then make your headline or make your profile speak to them. And though it's not that hard. Once you look at, put yourself in shoes of your target audience and then look at your profile, does it really speak to them? There was a time that I was targeting, I live in Dallas, Texas. So I was targeting the startup founders in Dallas, Texas. So my headline said, growth marketer for startup founders in Dallas. So very, very like a specific. By the way, you can change that. So let's say a couple of months down the road, you want to run another campaign, you want to target another type of audience, you can change that. So that's number one, building a personal brand. Make sure your profile is complete and it speaks to your target audience. How do you test it? Number one, put yourself in shoes of your target audience and take a look. Number two, show it to a couple of people and ask them, hey, what do you think? What's your feedback? Do you think I am missing something? Does it really speak to my target audience? So once you get that down, then the second is, I think what we kind of touched earlier, show up every single day. Magic is in consistency. I think we all know that, but somehow like we all like miss it. So create content on daily basis or on consistent basis on LinkedIn, content that reflects your topics or the thing that you want to be known for. In my case, I want to be known for marketing, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook ads. So if you look at my content that I post, it's around those topics. So that's how, to me, how do you know you're building a personal brand? When people start reaching out to you and they have questions and questions that are related to the topics that you want to be known for, that's the beginning of your personal brand development.
Well, I think that kind of rolls perfectly into the next thing I was going to ask you. And that's why a lot of us use LinkedIn is we're trying to get new clients. We're trying to get leads. And I think the interesting thing I noticed from your course and something I implemented is actually, like you mentioned your headline, but there's a whole science to how your profile is broken down, which I think is kind of amazing because there's that blurb, I don't know what it's technically called, underneath your photo on LinkedIn where you actually talk about who you are, what you do, why you matter. Yeah, there's a lot of time that's actually spent on putting things together like that and even writing your company description. So tell us a little bit about how we should be filling out our profile so that it really represents us to bring in clients.
Yeah, so number one is your profile image, right? So it's sort of everyone knows, keep it professional, not really like a bad image. Number two, the headline, it really like a short headline that speaks to your target audience. Number three, the third section is the summary section. So this is where if you have any accomplishments, if you've done something really cool, you can kind of like, talk that up in the summary section. And then once you jump into your, the descriptions of your experience, one thing that I like to do is make it, the more numbers you have, the better. So imagine, I say, ran campaigns, Facebook lead campaigns, versus I say ran Facebook lead generation campaigns for Fortune 500 companies, or generated 1,000 Facebook email leads at the cost of 15 cents per. And that itself, the line itself has some numbers. So what it does is the person who's reading them, he's going to think, so how did he do that? So use the sentences that you create in your summary section and in your experience section, add some numbers, and give people a reason to ask more questions. A lot of time, it's funny, I used to, when I started my business, the first business card I created, it said something like, hey, I'll increase your lead generation through social media by 50%. And everyone would ask me, like, how would you do it? And that's exactly what the purpose was. And for me to be able to do that, I would have to look at their existing data, like to simplify, look at their Google Analytics and see how much traffic is coming from, let's say, their Facebook, and what's their conversion rate. And to double it, what are the things that I would have to do in next like 3 months? But by me putting some numbers on the business card, it always kind of sparked a question from my target audience. So that's what I would do. Number one, make sure your profile is complete all the way. Do not leave anything empty. And number two, fill out your headline, your summary section, add numbers. If you worked or if you've been featured recently at mega publications, add those in there. But the more numbers you have, the more accomplishments you have, the better.
Well, I can already see some tweaks I'm going to have to do in mine. I need more numbers, man. So I'll be taking a look at that after we get off this call. So, go ahead.
Jeremy, I recently saw a post, I think you posted it. Weren't you like one of the top podcasters in the industry, top X podcasters? So
yeah, CIO Magazine, Chief Information Officer. Last year I was number 14. This year I was number 2. So I was on their list the last 2 years.
Got it. Congratulations. And
Thanks,
so data like that, right? So because it's gonna spark questions like, hey man, how did you do that? How did you get there?
That's really good to think with. I have some writing to do after this. So if we're taking a look at that, right? We have our profile together. We're thinking about personal branding, but like here's the thing, Ali, is we need more people following us. Like how do we go about like finding the right people? Because the interesting thing that you talked about too is changing your headline versus the campaign you're working on as well. So tell us a little bit about how we're going to grow our following on LinkedIn.
Yes. So it's kind of like, if forget LinkedIn for a second. If in real life we want to meet more people, what do? We show up at different events, right? And then exchange business cards and network with people. That's how we grow our like in-person network. So you would do the same thing in the beginning on LinkedIn. So your profile is complete. You are posting content, let's say daily or consistently on LinkedIn, the content that relates to the topics that you want to be known for. The other thing that you would do is search for your target audience. So let's say you're looking for founders in Dallas. So go to the search bar on LinkedIn. So search for founders or CEOs, select Dallas or whoever your target audience is. So it's going to show you a list of 5,315 people. So here's the process that I suggest that I use myself. Step number one, visit, let's say 50 people a day. And I'll tell you how to do it manually, and then I'll share a tool that can help you do this process.
I love the tool.
Visit, yes, yeah. Save time, right? So let's say you visit 50 people a day. What's going to happen is some of these 50 people, they'll get a notification that Ali Mirza viewed your profile. So some of these people will like visit you back. So on day number 2, you're going to visit another 50 people, but look at who's viewed your profile recently. So some people from yesterday will view your profile. So that's a signal that these people are in your target audience and they're active on LinkedIn. So those are the people that I would actually send a message or connection request to.
And is it important to personalize those requests, connection requests?
Absolutely. So, but it's not, a lot of times we think that, hey, it's going to be a lot of people and all we're doing is, spending time on LinkedIn. But I would say if you dedicate like 20 minutes or 30 minutes a day, that's more than enough. So step number 1, you visited 50 people. In step number 2, on the next day, some of these people will visit you back. So you send them a personalized connection request. And here's something that I like to do. Instead of saying, hey, I'm going to add you to my network, I'll probably say, hey, would you like me, or would you accept me in your network, or give them a permission to say no. So something like, so instead of just blindly sending a request and say, hey, let me just add you to my LinkedIn, kind of ask a question. Would you be willing to join me on LinkedIn so I can learn more about your business? It's going to be really hard for you to say no. So in this case, what we're doing is we're really searching and finding the people that we want to connect with. And then we're visiting, so we're taking the initiative and we're visiting their profile first. And then we're seeing who's active, because a lot of times people are probably on LinkedIn and they may not be active. So we're seeing, who's active on LinkedIn, and then we're sending them the first request or the first message. And in that message, we're giving them the power to say no. So that's the process. And the tool that you can use is called Duck Soup. So it's kind of like strange spellings, but it's DUXSOUP.
I love that, because we actually use that I think for like 100 connections a day, so we're able to like kind of make that process better. So let me ask you, because based on like a user experience point of view, like it's kind of more important to have LinkedIn Premium too for this to work out well.
It is, and actually, to be honest with you, I don't have LinkedIn Premium. A lot of clients that are in my agency, some of them, they do have LinkedIn Premium. If you do, it's great, but here's a great sort of testimonial testament that you don't need the LinkedIn Premium, because if you're visiting, like if you pick the right people and you visit 100 people a day, and then you imagine you're sending 4 or 5 messages per day, but really personalized messages, over time you can really build your network. Even if it's not huge, it's going to be really, really targeted and the people that you want to connect with.
Very cool. So let me ask you some feedback, I guess, on something I did recently on LinkedIn. I used to be big in the fitness space for many years. So a lot of my connections were personal trainers, gym owners, things like that. And, based on the market I'm in right now, those aren't really people that I need in my network. So I actually took a couple hours and went through and pruned out a lot of those people that weren't in the right network as me right now. Is that something that we should be doing if we're taking the time to do it, or what should we be thinking in that way?
Yeah, I would say from time to time, maybe every 3 months or 6 months, look at the people that you have in your network. And it's kind of, we do that in real life, right? If our priorities change, or if what we're doing in real life changes, then our kind of like friend circle changes, right? We stop hanging out at certain events, and we make new friends, and we go do new things. So I would say definitely look at your connections, and then if there are people that are not relevant, you can unfollow them, or you kind of like move away from it. Another good thing that will happen as a result of that, Jeremy, is your LinkedIn feed will improve. So my industry, or my niche, is marketing and social media and branding, right? So if I'm following the right people, if I'm connecting with the right people, then I'll see the right type of content in my newsfeed.
Totally. And the thing I was looking at it from, I guess the reason I did that is I wanted, like, when it recommends connections to me, I wanted them to be similar enough too as well, so they weren't like because I don't really have a need to connect with personal trainers or people like that anymore. Is that, I guess, from that standpoint, a good idea as well?
Yes. So I like to say that's not your target audience at this moment.
Very cool. So I guess as we're just kind of winding down here, what kind of changes do you see in the future for LinkedIn, and what should we be really on the lookout for?
So, one thing, anyone right now, everyone should have a personal brand. LinkedIn is, in my opinion, it's the best place right now. I know you and I, we probably use it daily, so we see a lot of content, but in the bigger scheme of things, it's still open platform. There are not a lot of people producing content. So one thing that I predict is going to change, the organic reach is going to go down, and they're going to push for ads. So a lot of engagement that you and I get on our content today, we won't be able to get because of their so-called algorithms in future. The other thing that I would see, there's a lot of value in Facebook groups. Exactly, the group like this one. So it's a small community, but there's a lot of value. People know each other. People can reach out to each other, help build connections. So same thing is going to happen to LinkedIn groups. I know there's been talk about improving the LinkedIn groups. So I predict that's another thing that's going to happen pretty soon. And the third thing, I believe, LinkedIn ads. So LinkedIn ads, I've used them in the past for different client campaigns. They're super expensive as of right now, but I believe they're going to make them easier to do. And in the beginning, whenever the LinkedIn ads sort of they relaunch, or people start talking about them, jump on them, because they're going to be super cheap or super inexpensive in the beginning.
Very cool. And just, I guess, from another question about interaction, this is something I started doing the last 2 weeks. One of our group members here, actually, Cave, has a Slack group called LinkedIn Boost, and we use that as actually like our interaction group for LinkedIn. Is that something that you're a proponent of as well, using groups to help drive up each other's interactions?
Yeah, so they're called like engagement pods.
Yeah.
So a lot of time, I would say, if you have like a similar, imagine the group like this that we have here on Facebook. So a similar people who are in the same niche, if you make a group of them, and it could be on Slack, it could be on Facebook Messenger, and sort of like engage with each other's content within a couple of hours of posting. What it does, it gives the platform, in this case LinkedIn, a signal that there's something interesting in this content, and they give you additional boost. So there's been a lot of use of this. I believe last year, I'm forgetting the person or the people who started using this initially, but I definitely use them. And I would say, yeah, if you don't have a LinkedIn, if you're not a member of a LinkedIn engagement pod, create one. And here's a good thing. Imagine if you have a small team of 6 people, right? So create a pod of those team members.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever you post something, if some of your team members go engage with it within a few minutes, that's a signal, and that's actually sort of like a hack that you can use on Instagram and Facebook as well.
Very cool. Well, Ali, this has been amazing and like action packed here, and we've been through like 25 minutes. So if people want to check out more about what you're doing, man, where's the best place for them to check you out, for them to follow you?
Yeah, so the website is iSocialU, and it's www.isocialu.com. That's the best place to connect with me or find out about my agency. And again, like I mentioned, the number one place I check these days when I wake up is LinkedIn. So that's another place you can go and connect with me.
Absolutely. And if people haven't checked out your LinkedIn course, I totally recommend they do, because like I said, it's been a game changer for us just to at least know what the road looks like, so I'm driving in the right direction. So thank you so much for hanging out with us today, Ali.
Thanks for having me, guys.